Yeah, we can hear you, Harsh.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, SocialAlpha and the team there for inviting me and for enabling this. Uh, just before the Janta curfew, I had put out one of my tweets saying that the way we eat, the way we meet, and the way we greet, it's all going to change. And we are today meeting in those change times. It demands a massive, massive shift in our attitude and in our gratitude, not only towards each other, but also towards existence itself. Like all of you, I don't understand this crisis fully. I don't know what it's going to look like in totality, and I don't know how much it is going to change each day. But I know that we have to put in our best efforts, rapidly learn in real time, learn under stress, and adapt. It is very important that we are anchored at this time inside to face the storm outside. Agitation won't help. You see in this title that the word leadership and management both come together. And I would like to share with you why I did that. Uh, Someone wrote very beautifully that leadership is the art of getting more than what the science of management says is possible. So while we have to manage the crisis, but we have to bring out all the leadership we have in us to get more out of this. Well, what is leadership in crisis? Leadership in crisis is the process of bringing new and generally unpleasant, unwelcome reality to the organization. But that's a completely incomplete version of it. Only when you as leaders help the people in your organization to successfully adapt to this unpleasant, unwelcome reality, it is leadership then. But if you were to take this leadership to the next level, you would go even beyond. And you would go to help the families of your people also to adapt with it. Then it would be called what I say, hashtag truly human leadership. We'll move on. Today, we are going to concentrate on looking at whether what we are doing is firefighting or fireproofing. What's your choice of action? What is the decision you are taking? We are going to look at how we are going to evolve crisis communication, what all goes behind to create crisis communication from within us. We are going to look at some tactical things on cash, runway, burn. We are going to look at HR, whether it is human resources or it is human relations. And we are going to look at what is the importance of now having always at hand a critical incidents management team and having a problem-solving process, a robust problem-solving process. You see, the situation in which we are, we don't know what to do, and people around us don't know what to do. So we have to rely on a robust problem-solving process. COVID-19 is a medical event, but the COVID-19 crisis is far deeper than that. The COVID-19 crisis is full of shocks and aftershocks. It is not only medical, it is social, psychological, economic, financial, logistical, supply chain, just name it. All the crises are part of COVID-19. And what the COVID-19 also conveys to us is that viruses and microbes are going to be a constant and consistent part of our future, and they are going to be periodic agents of disruption. Important is that they only remain and curtail themselves till periodic agents of disruption, and they don't become periodic agents of disaster as the situation is which we are seeing today. And therefore, we have to prepare for a changed world. I hope that we all have geared ourselves up already and prepared ourselves to a large extent for this changed world. We all have to be the change. A world where sustainability will no longer be preached, but it will be a part of every home process, every work process, and every industrial process. A world where experiments will be in real time, a world where everyone, irrespective of the position, in all layers of the organization will need to earn and establish trust. Your firefighting now could fireproof you to a large extent, or at least give you all the wherewithal on how you have to fireproof. The COVID-19, as I understand, must be the last event for us to firefight. We should henceforth be learned enough to fireproof. This is going to be the test of humanity and the test of leadership at every level. This is going to also be an exceptional opportunity for all of us to percolate leadership down at all the levels. Fireproofing, not firefighting, will also make you a very reliable organization. Temporary but indefinite, as the Harvard Business School called it, and I'm going to use some of the things which I have learned from Harvard or from London Business School during my different interactions today with you. Temporary and indefinite. In such times which are paradoxical, temporary but indefinite, every leader has to ask of himself, what do I want to do? What do I want to be during this crisis? And what do I want to be after this crisis? This is a crisis when no one knows what to do. What do we really do? Is there a framework which can help us derive, which can help us evolve this communication from inside us? Because unless this communication is internalized from us, we will not do an authentic job of conveying it to the outside world. So let us look at this articulation. I think this was the most effective articulation I found on evolving crisis communication. The Harvard Business School says that every individual, every organization must ask themselves 4 canonical questions, 4 sacred questions. And what are they? 1, it's about the identity. Who are we? Am I a part of this we? Or am I an individual, separated? Am I isolated? Am I a part of this collective mess, this collective problem? And do I want to be a part of this collective solution? Or I want to just stand out isolated? Second, about the values. What are the things that we care about which are at risk? What are my values? What are the values of my organization? And deep inside, where is my internal compass pointing at? The third thing is to have situational awareness. What has happened and what is happening? When the identity, values, and situational awareness come together, the fourth question emerges, which is, what do people like us with values like ours do in a situation like this? What is the communication which emerges from this? What is the action which emerges as a result of that communication? I prefer to call action as the choice of action rather, because when I call it the choice of action, it just brings much more consciousness to the process, I think. So I will be silent for the next few moments. I would like you to just take a read at this slide one more time and try to imbibe what the slide is communicating. Leaders will have to give it all that means, all the means which they have at their disposal, the knowledge, information, and experience. But even more important is going to be tapping your own internal infinite source. And now we have to do that in perpetuity. What I precisely mean is that there has to be a new calm inside to deal with the new chaos and new crisis outside. Most likely, many of you who are attending this would have heard of what is called the Stockdale paradox. The Stockdale paradox was something which Admiral James Stockdale, who was a prisoner of war in Vietnam and awarded the Medal of Honor when he came back with a large number of people back to the US and survived the atrocities. The Stockdale paradox is an evergreen guide to crisis leadership. Let us take a look at what Stockdale paradox tells us. It is one of the most effective guides for leading in crisis. The first thing which it tells us is be brutally honest about the situation with your people. Tell them the facts. Don't hold back anything. Secondly, because you are a leader and you are in a position to see a larger picture than they are able to see, you must be also in a position to offer your people a rational basis for hope, a rational basis for optimism. Brutally honest about the situation and offer a rational basis for optimism. These are the two messages which came, these are the two principles which came from Admiral James Stockdale. The Harvard Business School later on added an element to this, saying that this communication or this messaging should be done with empathy, with emotional understanding. And I couldn't agree more with them, because more than as corporates, more than as humans, more than as entrepreneurs, we are leading our people being humans ourselves. And empathy in our bosom is important to deal with our people. For your reflection is, who do you seeing this today? Who are you seeing around you who is demonstrating the Stockdale principles in reality? If you are able to spot people who are doing this, I can just tell you that they are the people whom you have to track. They are the people whom you have to follow, because they are the ones who will go far. Any questions so far?
Harsh, there is a question, I mean, more like a question that people want to know your answers regarding those 4 questions you asked, like real life situation answers.
Sure. Okay, I'm going back to the slide. My answers to this would be the first one. Who am I? Who are we? As an individual, I'm definitely a part of this. I have to contribute to the larger cause, and I have to be in this with my people and with the families of my people. I have to not only take responsibility for myself, that will come last, but I have to take their responsibility. I have to do everything to make them adapt. The biggest values which I will vouch for myself at this time is resilience. I have to adapt to the varying situation. I must have organizational resilience. I must have personal resilience. I don't think I need to talk about situational awareness. We, in our own rights, know what has happened and what is happening. But when I combine the identity, values, and situational awareness, all I can say is that I have to be a part of the larger ecosystem. I have to be in the forefront to fight this. I have to help every individual, every organization, even ahead of myself, to be able to help them, to be able to give them navigation which I could, and to hold hands together and move forward. So this is, in its own way, a little philosophical, but I think in today's times, every manager and every leader, philosophy is a very big foundation of his leadership style. Can I proceed? Is there anything else, Manaswini?
No, Harsh, as of now, only that question. You can proceed.
Okay. So going ahead of crisis communication, let us now visit some tactical problems. What I'm going to share with you have been my personal experience also, because when I started my career, it started with a lot of adversity. And there was, in adversity, financial situation is one of the first things which you have to handle, but you also have to keep your spirits high. And we spoke about that a little bit. While we have to do everything, and I am saying everything here in caps, to retrench cash flow, and there are some tactical examples I will be sharing with you, but they must all be eventually balanced with strategic renewal. If we just leave it at tactics, they will come back to haunt us at some time. We are going to need the support of all the people with whom we are going to enter into, let us say, some kind of tactical understanding. So strategic renewal of theirs will be a must. Before I proceed, my first advice would be, like many other people, look after your employees' safety first. Endeavor that the most affected people in your organization at least get their meals. Their families are at least not deprived of the meals. And remember that in the financial dictionary, the term fixed costs doesn't exist anymore. You have to attack every item which you can conceive of. The most convincing and authentic argument one can have for negotiations at this time is to tell your vendor or tell your provider, your service provider. Anyone would like to take a chance at what would be the most convincing argument? Manasini, if you get anything in the chat, please share with me.
I haven't got anything, Harsh. You can proceed.
Okay.
If there are questions, I'll put it on the chat.
All right. The most convincing and authentic argument for negotiations at this time is to tell your vendor a very simple statement. You stand to gain, dear sir, only if I succeed and only if we weather this storm jointly as true partners. If I don't succeed, there is no chance that this relationship will be in a position to carry on in the future. Remember, this is not an extraordinary situation only for you. This is not an extraordinary situation only for you, only for a few. It is for all of us. You will have to have in you to make people understand, and you will have to get their understanding. Let's move on to some tactics. For many situations, we could say, I don't have the answer, I have to come back to you, or we could reframe the question and ask it again. But when it comes to cash, you have to be firm, resolute, and stoic. No two ways about it. As far as cash conservation is concerned, you cannot give the impression that you are still thinking about it. You don't want to be grounded, sir. You need the runway. Some specific areas, I'm sure you would have all attacked rentals. It is a low-hanging fruit. There is a huge opportunity over here to substantially prune the costs down. And my only advice, if any of you haven't done this so far, you should do it today itself. Digital marketing. If you are hibernating and if you are not making any products which anyway are associated with COVID-19 now, digital marketing is something which could be eliminated. But at this time, I would also like to tell you that it would be a good idea to bring on the creative juices of yourself and your colleagues and see if you can do your own digital marketing campaign and you can use the social media even in this time without incurring any costs. Things like site hosting, if you are using Shopify or something, you could go to them and get very good deferrals. I think I know companies who have done this. If you are using MailChimp or something for email services, it is something again, which you could approach them for deferral. I think that is happening. You know, accounts receivable and accounts payable is the first thing which strikes us, to defer accounts payable as much as we can and to collect the receivables as soon as we can. And I think that is a very standard procedure. You will have to look at what you can do over there. But the most important thing is that every line item of general and administrative costs, you have to be rigorous with each and every one of them. There is a lot of hidden detail and a hidden expense over there, which actually can be eliminated in today's times. Many companies I know have eliminated total G&A at this time because they want to increase the runway. And CapEx, you should put an embargo on CapEx for now, and including WIP CapEx. WIP capex should also be stalled unless there is more clarity, unless you have larger visibility. You must refrain from capex, including WIP capex. Some arithmetic I wanted to discuss with you. Let us take an example where your revenue is 90 and your expense is 100 per month. So the burn is 10 per month. And the cash and bank balance you have available with you is 50. What does this mean? This means that in normal circumstances, in pre-COVID circumstances, this is a 5-month runway. However, during the times we are facing now, in COVID, if you don't take all the steps which are necessary to take, this is only a half-month runway. You have to simply attack everything. I wanted to just demonstrate this to show how runways can look so different in varied situations, and that you have to do everything in your power to maximize the runway. It isn't a time to think optimally. You have to think of the reasonable worst case scenario and surviving that worst case scenario. I'm sure that your 2020 budgets are now history, and you have to go for zero-based budgeting probably many times during this year. And this again, I share with my early years of adversity. Some other considerations. Plan for a U-shaped recovery. It is unlikely that we will have a V-shaped recovery. If we have, great. Otherwise, we have to plan for the worst. So plan for a U-shaped recovery. Raising money now will not only be about the merits of your business, but it will also be about the general sentiment about the macroeconomic environment. Both will go hand in hand. The valuation multiples will be reset. You have to maximize the company for runway now, not valuation. Import dependent companies must go for Forex cover. And if you need to fundraise today, familiar people obviously are your best bet. Familiar people and the people they are able to introduce you to based on your credibility. They are your best bet today. Manaswini, any questions on this part?
Yeah, Harsh. There is a question. So there are two questions. I'm just putting it on the chat.
Okay. Yes, there is a question that absolutely for accounts receivables and payables, we must consider discounts and installment payments. And WIP capex, work in progress. Capex, which is work in progress. If you have ordered something and made partial payments, or if there is some kind of installation, or if there is some kind of construction which is only completed partially, I think you need to take a hard look at that, revisit that, whether at this time you would want to maximize the runway instead of proceeding with that capex. An explanation on the Forex cover, companies which are dependent on imports. You could take cover so that you will not be affected by the further fall or devaluation of the rupee. You could peg that cost, limit that cost at this stage. I think these questions are answered. Can I proceed?
There's a last question,
Sure.
Harsh. How can we take advantage of the Forex cover? Recent question.
You know, if let us say that if some people would have acted on time, and when the rupee dollar situation was 71 or 72 rupees, and today it is 77, 78, if a cover would have been taken at 71, 72, then today we would not have to be dependent on that 78 rupees when we import something. Or if there are any imports on the way, we could have saved that 5 or 6 rupees. So in a similar manner, if you are anticipating any more imports, if you have some LCs open or something open which you have not, which you are not able to close, and that is bound to come and you are bound to pay for that, I think you can take a look at that. You can take a call on that. That is it making sense for me now to take a Forex cover? You can take some advice from Forex experts and from bankers also on that. Yes, anything else?
Harsh, there's one more question about IP R&D expenses for startups focused on IP-led products.
Great question. So it's always a call. And if at all you are able to maximize your runway, let us say to about 8 to 12 months, and you are able to in some form or the other carry on R&D, it's a huge, huge plus. It's a huge, huge advantage, because you are doing all that in times when you are not able to do anything else. And you can put all that into practice when you come back into momentum. So it's a great question. If you are in a position to do R&D at this time, there could be nothing better. And even if you are not in a position to do R&D, I would suggest that with your team and with your colleagues and with your companions, you must have very robust discussions around R&D. And even if though you are not able to do it practically, you must establish all the theory around it as far as possible.
Harsh, there's one more question that you can take. After
Yes.
that, we can proceed.
Okay, I'll look at the chat.
One second.
Okay.
I just put it on the chat. Can you see it?
Yes, I just tried. For new orders, if someone is offering LC, well, it makes sense to verify the LC if the LC is coming from a bank which is, let us say, unheard of. If it is coming from a bank which you have been dealing with on a regular basis, if your customer has opened LCs on you previously from that bank, it should be quite okay to go ahead with that. But if the bank is something which you haven't heard of before, then verification is a must. I would strongly encourage that you should go ahead for verification then. And there's one more question I see.
Harsh, maybe we can take this question after the session during the Q&A.
All right.
I'll just make
Cool.
a note of this. Prabhat, we'll have this question answered during the Q&A at the end of the session. I'm making a note of this.
All right. So then I will proceed.
Yeah.
We must respect the times. Okay. HR, whether it is human relations or whether it is human resources. London Business School put it very beautifully as resourceful humans. You all know about unpaid leave, salary cuts. Most of you would have taken 100% cuts on salary as founders. You know about layoffs. I just want to probably present a different perspective to you today. Your people have been instrumental in your success, and mostly it is going to hit them harder than it has hit you. What can you do? Motivation won't work, because most likely for a lot of people, it would have the psyche would have been impacted. And motivation is something which is extrinsic. It is a carrot and stick approach. And also at this time, we are not able to, in the true sense, do any motivation in the form of rewards. What will work is inspiration. You must take the opportunity to recall with your members, with your individual team members also, what you have done together, how you have come across challenging times together, how you have crossed obstacles together when you had seen a wall and you had seen no option, you had seen no light, how you even found a solution at that time. You have to relive the vision with them. You have to ignite that in them, that the human will is indomitable. You have to be that role model. I see that, you know, with startups, you have to be the counselor. You have to be the mentor for them. You have to be the role model. And role model here, you know, it's not example. Being the example is not the main thing today. Being the example is the only thing today. One of the things which you could do is let your employees, your team members, know the reality from the world beyond you. Expose them to webinars which you have access to. Expose them to news which otherwise they don't get access to. Expose them to people whom they don't get access to. This is a very sound way to increase their perception consciously. And if you are able to increase their perception consciously, if this is kind of happening inside them with self-determination, I tell you, you will create a lot of admiration. You will create a lot of volition in them in the time to come. On a tennis court, everyone shows the forehand strength, but we also need backhand strength. You know the strengths of your people, you know the weaknesses of your people. It's great time to enroll them for online education. It is available free of cost from established institutions or at a very low cost. You know what their strengths and weaknesses are. This is the time that you can create that possibility, that inspiration in them, that even though this time is there, you are being a mentor to them and you are telling them that what needs to be done and how they should sharpen their edge at this time, because that is the reservoir which is going to be available to you once you come back in momentum. And imagine the reservoir will be filled up with much more than what it is now. So I think that's a wonderful way to capitalize on at this time. And most importantly, stay in touch with people. Go beyond them, go beyond leadership to become a truly human leader. Go to their families to build a connection. Give them hope, but don't hide the reality. This can be your way of empowering them. Be creative. You know, if a leader truly taps his inside force, he can be creative in unlimited manners. When you arrange calls with your employees, or sometimes when you are talking to their families, you can designate calls like gratitude calls, innovation calls, inspiration, music and movie calls, feedback or feed forward calls, failure calls, success calls. There's just, I can just tell you that culture is one thing you can create, you can continue to build, even if you are hibernating. And this is just absolutely a wonderful opportunity. This, I would say, is the silver lining in the cloud, that we can still continue to create culture when we are hibernating. The relationship between realizing human potential and organizational potential is directly proportional. It is dialectic. So I personally think that this could absolutely amplify your organizations when you come back. Culture cannot be seen, it cannot be copied, but it can be created even as you are hibernating. So friends, having said this, we have touched upon 3 aspects of resilience in our own ways now. Operational resilience, when we talked about cash. Personal resilience, when we talked about the 4 questions. And strategic resilience, when we are talking about going beyond transaction with our employees, when we are talking about going from profit to meaning with our employees. Any questions here?
No, Harsh. You can proceed.
I would encourage all of you to look up for the case of a company called Barry Wehmiller. This is Bob Chapman, who is the CEO of Barry Wehmiller, and this is a US-based company. This was probably the only company during the 2008 financial crisis which survived the crisis very well without laying off a single individual in the company. And Bob Chapman then brought this term together, truly human leadership. And he uses this term very often. And there are several case studies of Barry Miller to demonstrate what truly human leadership is. So I would strongly encourage, these are available very easily. Please do download them and please do read them. I think they will be a source of inspiration and a source of willpower to you. So maybe to summarize till now, we looked at physical capital, which is tangible capital, material resources. We looked at social capital, which is culture and collective intelligence, partly tangible and partly intangible. And we looked at parts of moral capital, meaningfulness, the intangible, making that connection with the employees and even their families. In the domain of leadership, every organization looks at performance, and performance is the most tangible part. But the one thing which has the maximum impact on performance is culture. Probably just under half of the impact on performance comes from culture of the organization. And the one thing which impacts culture the most is leadership. And it is the behavior of the leadership which impacts the culture the most. So you see, we have tangible, which is the performance, then the culture, which is partly tangible and intangible, and then the behavior of the leadership, which is the intangible. What I'm trying to convey to all of you is that to impact the tangible, we have to work on the intangible. And this is a great time that we work on our intangibles and on the intangibles of our people. This is a great time that we go from physics to chemistry, we go from motivation to inspiration, we go from profit to meaning. And the larger meaning always is to help elevate each other. I want to talk to you how important it is to form a critical incident management team. It doesn't matter what the size of the organization is. And it can sometimes have only one person or two persons or 10 people. Some people refer to this as the tiger team. In crises like this, these teams are responsible to oversee all aspects of the event, understand the emerging issues of the event, reframe them as questions, and deliberate. And when you deliberate, take the help of your mentors and go for facilitated deliberation. Facilitated deliberation is a great tool to pull you out of the role of deliberation and have you actually, as the founder, involved in the critical incident management team. Now, once you have the critical incident management team, what is the process that the critical incident management team needs to follow? Because the situation, as we told earlier, is no one knows what to do. So when no one knows what to do, we need a robust, a methodical process to follow, because the process then will give us the answers. So let us take a look at this process. Stage 0, establish for problem solving. Stage 0, establish the goals, priorities, and values. That comes from the moral reasoning. 1, understand the situation, the description of the situation. 2, develop all the options, be creative, have your organization involved in this. 3, predict outcomes for each option, be analytical. 4, choose the best course of action. This is an executive responsibility. And 5, execute. This is the administrative job. Now, in times like this, which are dynamic, the priorities may be conflicting from one day to the other, depending on how the situation is changing. And what you are executing today, based on the decision yesterday, may need to be revisited. So if you see from 5, we have the possibility to go back to 0 or 1. And we may have to do this again and again to be able to configure and reconfigure with the situation in which we are. Important to make this process successful is the ability for people to contribute openly to the process. People should feel comfortable and fearless to bring their ideas and concerns. And this is dependent on the psychological safety you can offer as leaders to your entire organization. What is psychological safety? It is a felt permission for candor. It is a belief that the context is safe for interpersonal risk taking. It is a belief that if I speak up, whosoever I may be in the organization, if I speak up with ideas, questions, concerns, my mistakes will be welcomed and valued. I will not be reprimanded. I will not be looked down upon. I will be inspired to still contribute. My mouth will not be shut. If I take you through this beautiful 2x2 here, on the y-axis, we have the psychological safety, and on the x-axis, we have urgency. And I would like to quickly go through all these 4 zones with you. Where the psychological safety given by the leadership is low, and the sense of urgency is also low. That's the apathy zone. Where the psychological safety given by the leadership is high, but the sense of urgency in the team is low. That is the comfort zone. Where the sense of urgency is always high, but the psychological safety given by the leadership is low. That leader is always creating a lot of interpersonal anxiety. But where the sense of urgency is also high and the psychological safety is also high, then we are in the problem solving zone. I also, in my own way, call this as the resilient zone, because this is where you can create solutions for adapting to varying situations. A little bit about customers and supply chain, but before that, very quickly, in 2011, when the tsunami and earthquake situation happened in Japan, and the example is coming from large companies, but it is very much applicable to us as a matter of learning. Almost a large number of companies were subject to heavy destruction. All automobile companies were subject to substantial destruction. And Nissan was one of them, which was subject to probably the maximum destruction. But in that year, 2011, Nissan came back with the best profits and the best revenues compared to the industry. And their sales in 2011, the year of the crisis, were almost equivalent to what they did in the previous year, 2010, which was a normal year. Now, after being most affected, how did Nissan do this? And the answer to this is that within 15 minutes of the destruction, Nissan's critical incident management team came together for an action plan. They had an action plan which they visited and revisited again, of course, drawn up in the first hour or two, and actions taken on what all they have to do in several different verticals to minimize the impact on the business. So leaders who are not thinking that they will have to work a lot on the supply chain will bite the dust. And all of us, till we reach the final consumer, are part of the supply chain. I would also like to say that this is an opportunity to cement relationships with your customers, with your suppliers even further. Because when you cement these relationships in that space, you may be able to find innovation and magic. You have to talk to them regularly beyond the transaction. One of the other important things, so far, the traditional way has been of looking at high likelihood, low impact events, like a delay in delivery, or a problem with quality, or a problem with power outage, or a problem with unavailability of some kind of raw material or packaging material. But now, in today's time, as being part of the supply chain, we have to all come together and look at all the low likelihood and high impact events. COVID, which was never anticipated by all, even when it started looking at us in the face, when it was happening in China, none of us could anticipate that it could hit us. So it is a must that we learn from this, and we all put our energies as leaders into low likelihood, high impact events and see what kind of insulation we could one by one do for our supply chain, considering the low likelihood, high impact events. And this is a time also where the view from the entire stakeholder community will, in my opinion, have to change from efficiency to reliability. Efficiency means taking out buffers and slack resources to keep the costs low. But reliability means building in certain redundancy, building in certain slack at the critical areas so that the system can withstand failures. As bankers, as equity funds, as venture capitalists, as managements, as leaders, we will have to consider that operational excellence no longer will be, efficiency will be the only matrix in that. I think reliability is going to become a large matrix as part of that, a large metric for that. And what is resilience? A few words on that. You are startups, there is no bureaucracy in your companies, but someday you will become big. But the point is that bureaucracy should be replaced with emergence. Formalization should be replaced with personalization. Efficiency should be replaced with reliability, and profitability should be, we should go beyond the meaning of profitability to look at the meaning of meaning in what we are doing. A little about meaning. What does profitability to meaning mean? One view of human nature is that people are motivated by extrinsic drivers, primarily financial rewards, the carrot and stick approach. An alternative view of human nature is that people are motivated by intrinsic drivers, such as concern for others, for society, for the planet, for co-creating something purposeful together, for contributing to growth of each other, for making sure that I have meaning in my job, I am valued, I have my self-esteem over here, which grows with each day. Finding meaning at work, a sense of identity within the organization, self-esteem that my job is just not a transaction. At every level, this has to happen. It has to be personalized by the leader to every individual. A sense of purpose. Am I doing some larger good? Am I part of something bigger? Am I really making a purposeful difference? A sense of belonging. Can I bank upon the organization to grow me as an individual? I come back to James Stockdale, and exactly in his words, the Stockdale paradox. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end. You can never afford to lose this, that you will prevail in the end. But with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be. Your faith, ladies and gentlemen, today has to be stronger than ever. Your resilience, your affirmations to yourself, your acknowledgements to yourself that the power is there within you to make it through this and through even larger things. Probably some of you may have read Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was, he was in the Holocaust camps in Poland, and he survived them, and he wrote this book then, Man's Search for Meaning. And the most important thing which is taken from this book, it's a very short digest to read. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. No one can imprison your attitude, and you can build attitude with a lot of acknowledgement of gratitude. That is my small bit. added to that. If we have our board of mentors today, our personal board of mentors, with people like Viktor Frankl, with people like James Stockdale, and with our own inspirations around us who are in their own ways like these people and doing their stuff for humanity, for their people, we will never fall short of finding a way. If we know, if we have the why to live for, no matter how many houses will be there, we will be able to counter all of them together. If there's one thing, my friends, I wish for all of you today in abundance, it is resilience. It is resilience for you, your families, your colleagues, your companions, and their families. It is only resilience. Nish said, he who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. Intangible resources and capabilities will become particularly valuable in terms of crisis for innovation and for organizational resilience. The COVID is intangible. The virus cannot be seen, it cannot be touched. We will defeat it by our intangible, by our own indomitable wills. I am sure that in these times, you will not only maintain but grow in your self-esteem. And I hope so will be the case with all your companions and colleagues, and their self-esteem will also stay undiminished. Friends, you are all doing a great job. Be at it. Many thanks today for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Harsh. We do have two questions. Can I put them on the chat now?
Yes. I'm reading the question, uh, which is about the pharmaceutical sector, about the pharma and healthcare sectors. Well, pharma and healthcare definitely are going to be on top of the charts as far as business and as far as prosperity is concerned. Uh, I personally feel, I'm not in a position to give you a definite answer, but I personally feel that you are in safe hands in dealing with them. And the other question, I cannot see that other question fully. Can you reinsert that in the chat?
Which one, Harsh? The first one?
Yeah, the first one, please.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. This is from a gentleman who runs an event management company, having paid advance, and now he is paying interest on the advance. Uh, my friend, you have to be face to face with this organization. I think that you are in a position where you can morally prove your ground and you can start claiming the advance back from them part by part. This is probably the best way for you to deal. But if this is not possible for any reason, you have to see what they can do for you in return if this is not possible, whether now, and if not now, once the momentum is back, once the situation starts bouncing back, what kind of insurance, what kind of business can they offer you, which is much larger than today? Regarding the GST, I'm sorry, I'm not so equipped to answer your question on the GST, whether you can get financed by bank or any institution. Any institution. If I do get anything, I will, uh, I will loop back with Manaswini, and probably she can get back to you on that. Advice for startup planned, uh, just keep reinforcing your R&D, keep making your scenarios even stronger now, uh, make your faith even more indomitable now, uh, keep your dreams on. We are going to come out of this. See what you can build to take capital, to capitalize on the current situation. What are the gaps emerging which you can address? The conflict in decision making in the crisis situation. I'm at question 8.
Harsh, I've added 5 more questions. Can you see them?
Yeah, I'm at the last one now because they were just jumping back, Manaswini.
Yeah.
I'm at the last one, I think. And here, the questioner is asking whether to go for authoritative decision by leader alone or taking consensus of all. I think it's if the situation permits you to follow the process and take consensus from your team members, it's great because they need to be part of this loop. However, if it's a situation where you cannot wait and you know you are taking the best decision, if you are on the edge and you cannot wait, you have no time to collect this consensus, it's a different matter. There could be such matters, I'm not saying no, but probably I feel that you should be in a position to take consensus of at least your critical people who are part of the decision making process. Okay, how to bridge the gap between customer expectations of price reductions and supplies with hiked prices. This is a demand and supply, a typical situation. I think a lot of readjustment is going to happen on prices of many things. Commodities will go down, certain other recurring expenditures may go up, so there will be adjustments, and we have to wait and see where we are landing. There has to be in this complete process more chemistry and more cooperation between us, the customer, and the supplier. We have to do it together. It's no longer going to be that we can take these decisions alone. How does COVID crisis change the definition of short, mid, long term to measure KPI outcomes? I think what COVID crisis will change is that in the short term, you will have to be prepared for the long term. So it is like a temporary but indefinite kind of thing. So KPIs and outcomes, I think we'll have to figure this out as we go along, but there certainly will be change. For example, we spoke about the fact that efficiency won't be enough now. The reliability of the organization in times like this will also become very important for customers and for suppliers. For your own stakeholders, for people who fund you, I think they are going to look at you. These are going to be your proof points. What is your resilience? Have you been able to run the business without disruption? These are going to be your proof points for them to take a good hard look at you. Runway plan, I think that runway plan should be for 12 months, nothing less than 8 months. But at least the trends which we are doing today, I think it's better to be prepared for the worst. We can always readjust if things become better. No, I did not mean to say that efficiency can be altered with reliability. I wanted to say that reliability is going to become one of the key factors now for resilience. We have always focused on efficiency. That means everything is happening right on time, just in time. And when situations like this happen, just in time cannot be there. So the efficiency will bound to be impacted at those times. And if we are introducing some slack and redundancy in the system to build reliability, we will have to work out the metrics of what we are building and what we are compromising on the efficiency side, given if such a situation arises. I think, Manaswini, I have addressed these questions.
Harsh, there's one more question on how to, what runway plan should be for how many months and
Yes,
what should be the runway.
yeah, I addressed that. Runway plan should be, in my opinion, about 12 months, definitely not less than 8 months. And this is the time when you will, I go back to the things which I was talking about, the intangible, about your talking to your people. You will have to do a lot of work with your people in this time. You will have to do a lot of work keeping their inspiration on, keeping them going. As a leader, this is your responsibility.
That's about it, Hush. There are no more questions. Everyone, if you have any questions, please feel free to add them on the chat. We can take another 4 or 5 questions. Right, Hush?
Sure. A lot of work will be needed to done by everyone to ask those 4 canonical questions to themselves. There will be a lot of answers within. We have to have the subtleness to hear them also.
Right. I think that's about it, Harsh. There are
Super.
no more questions. If there's anything would you like to end on a note, please feel free to.
No, thank you once again, SocialAlpha, for this opportunity. Thank you, friends. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, all of you are very, very important resources for your organizations. You are the ones on whom all this is standing. You are the ones who must keep their inspirations high at all times, be resilient, and keep others resilient. Keep going at it. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Harsh, for your time.
Thank you.
Really looking forward. And there might be more questions, so we'll be re-addressing them to we'll
Yeah,
be
you can
redirecting
send them
them
to
to
me,
you.
Manaswini.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you so much, Harsh. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.